And then let me just share it on my page and we are ready to go. Oh, there it is. Okay, so sorry again for the delay. My tribe can let you know that this is not the norm. I've just been kind of going through, I'm not gonna lie. You know, when you go through things and then it just knocks you kind of off a little bit of your regularly very organized self. I'm like, okay, I need to get back on track. So sorry about that. But I do want to give you a little taste for those that are first comers, give you a little taste of what class will be like. So tonight, we're going to do an abbreviated version of practice questions only, okay? This is a session that I do sometimes at the beginning of the series and sometimes at the end of the series. So we're starting out with practice questions only because that's kind of where we left off when we were going to do some free classes the last time. So I just wanted to make sure we are, you know, good to go with that. And so we're gonna do an abbreviated class. We're gonna go to about 9:30. And we're gonna get into some questions, go over some tips. But if you have any questions, let me know. How we always conduct ourselves is gonna be kind of how we do tonight. My name is DrSapphireBoone. I am the owner of Advanced Social Work Solutions. I have my BSW, MSW, and PhD all in social work. I started the company back in 2020, but I have been preparing MSW students for the exam for the past almost 10 years now. And the material that you will see tonight, and then also if you decide to continue with me throughout my new class series, will be based upon what I've been seeing and working with students. Honestly, the material doesn't really change, honestly. But as you know, the questions and how they ask them and what really the focus of the exam can be different and can change over time. And so I will edit my material as I go along. And so what you'll see tonight is some of the questions will have 3 answer options, as that is one of the integrations that happened back in 2023 at the beginning of the year. So you'll see that. And then anything that I kind of hear on the streets about, hey, I didn't know anything about this, make sure you cover that. I will make sure I at least bring it up and let you know, hey, please make sure you study this. And then if I have time, I'll try to craft some slides and throw them in there as well. So I wanted to start off with just sharing my class schedule and the kind of deals I got going on right now, just so you know, and then we'll go right into the questions. All right, where's my little picture? I didn't see. The other thing about me, the reason that you are here and hopefully that you decide to continue with me if you are new, is I really focus on your breakdown strategy. I'm like a question breakdown strategist. That's really what I do. The content, I'm going to help you learn the content because I'm also an adjunct professor and a trainer. So I just naturally like to teach. So I'm able to break down the information, but also I've got to teach you how to really make sure that you're strategizing when it comes to those exams. So we have 7 classes coming up. You see them here. So Thursdays, actually what we're about to do now is more of a Sunday session, just questions. Thursday, I'm going to give you a lecture and then questions. The reason why I do that is because I'm a teacher, but also because I don't want you just randomly answering questions. I need you to know why the answer is the answer and where the information came from to give us the answer. So that's what we do on Thursdays. It's longer because I'm going to lecture you a little bit. But Sundays is a new feature, just questions, and we're going to go over the homework that you're given in the Thursday classes. You can take the Sunday classes on their own and you'll still get the questions. But if you already attended Thursday, then you'll already have them. Or if you ever attended any of my series in the past year, then you already have those questions. It's the same questions. These Thursday classes are $27 and the Sunday classes are $17. If you feel that you're gonna buy more than 3 classes, you should sign up for the bundle. It's $99 for all 7 classes. And then from now until September 14th, if you buy the class bundle, you'll get my video course for free. I know, it's a lot. So that's my deal going on right now. If you are a loyal customer and you have paid for my video course already in full, or if you've already purchased, because I have some people that like to come back just as a refresher. If you purchased the classes before, don't go ahead and spend any more money. Just email me and I'm going to have a wait list of people to add to the classes. Because as you see tonight, we only had 57 people and it was free, right? So my classes don't always fill all the way to 100. So those spaces, as they are available, will be available for my loyal customers. And I want you to go ahead and email me at my email. I'm about to drop it in the chat. Social work solutions. I gotta change my email so long. I'm so sorry about that. All right, so we got the logistics down. Now let's hit it. Let's hit the material. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop it in the chat. I wasn't looking at the chat earlier. I'm so sorry. Let's see. I don't think I have any questions yet. A big challenge is, how do I restart? Okay. Yep. Okay. So I do have a handout that I'm going to share on the screen. Okay. I did want to talk about the changes. What do I think? And let me know on Facebook, those watching on Facebook, let me know if you have any questions, drop it in the comments. So the changes are irritating. When I saw it, I was like, more changes, okay. So if you are a little anxiety provoked by them changing something else, okay, it's okay. What I saw was that this new company has at-home testing options. Now, in the news release that they sent on the website, it was vague. It said that the in-home options would be available later in the year. So it really wasn't specific on that. But I did watch the video of how they do their in-home, and it is a lot. So I don't know. It could be better or it couldn't be. I have a lot of questions, right? So when you start out, you have to do a 360 of your environment with the camera. They have to look at your desk. They have to look under your desk. It seems like you can't have a built-in webcam because they want to see your actual computer, make sure there's nothing on your keyboard. So it does say webcam. So I think you have to actually have an additional camera that you can remove and like do the little 360. You will have a proctor. They will be able to notice if there's any noises and if there's any screens that you have up. I don't think you can talk. So the whole point of being at home is so maybe you might talk out loud or try to process with your own self. But of course, that could be seen as you're processing with like somebody sitting right there. So I don't think that's allowed. Also, I had questions about, well, what if like there's a lawnmower outside? Like, what am I going to do about that? Are you going to ding me on that? So I don't know. I don't know how all that works. So there is an in-home option, so that's great. What I haven't seen yet is if there is a preview of what the software will look like, and are they going to change the practice test to mimic the new, well, actually, let me take that back. They're not changing the software, so that should all be the same. They're just changing who, well, maybe that's what I need to look into. Let's look into it. Because I didn't see a change of practice test. So I guess the software is still the same. It's just the person who is overseeing the testing sites is different. So we'll go with that. But that's my understanding of everything. And we are just going to be looking to see, you know, what happens with that. What do I think? Should you hurry up and take your exam, or should you wait for the new system? What I would suggest is it's up to your preference. The great thing is that the exam is not changing. But if you're interested in the in-home option, I do think you would have to wait. They didn't give a time frame, so you may have to wait like almost a whole year from now to possibly, I don't know, to experience the in-home. It's not an immediate, from what I read, it was not immediately you'll be doing in-home testing. But hopefully that will free up the dates. If there's in-home testing, that means you can pick whatever date you want, I would think, or be more flexibility in the dates, hopefully. So that's kind of the news. Make sure you go to aswb.com. And, you know, just keep watching the updates for that. I will be taking the exam on Thursday. Any advice on what season I should buy? What season? Let me know in the chat what you mean by what season. I'm not sure. Not sure what that means. Okay. Oh, session. Oh, got it. So I will take the exam on Thursday. Like next Thursday? Okay, so let's go ahead and start. What class? Yes, on 7. Yeah, so if you're, I do have pre-recorded classes available that you can watch now. And I would go with definitely macro. If that's your weak area, definitely go with that. So I wanted to go over just a few tips. I'm about to run through these slides in about 5 minutes so we can get to the questions. Who is the client? You want to keep that in mind, okay? What is the main issue? Don't get distracted on a whole lot of stuff. So what I'm going to teach you over these next couple of months is to fine tune what you're focusing on. So for example, one of my friends, I think I gave this example last time. She was studying, she just graduated. So she was really, I mean, we're all serious about our craft, but she was really serious. So she was studying for skill, right? She was like taking in the information and trying to figure out how she's going to use this in practice. You can't study like that. This exam is not a practice exam. It's not one that you can study for real life. If you study for real life, then you're going to look at the scenarios like it's like real life. And you can't do that. You have to study for the content and really try to figure out what they're asking you and what subject or what area should you be thinking about in this question, right? So if it's an ethical scenario, well, I need to be thinking about the code of ethics, and that's going to help you answer the question. So that's just a way of just don't get caught up in the additional information. Of course, we're going to make sure that our client is safe, and we want to do what's in the best interest of our clients. We're going to go over how to answer first questions. They're my favorite because I'm an orderly person. I like the processes and rules. So you're going to put it in order. And you're going to also think about what would be your immediate answer, right? So you should be acting If something has happened, if they're asking you what to do first, you should be acting immediately, not long-term, not the long-term goal, but what is the immediate goal about what's happening. Safety feelings assessment, we're going to go over what that means. And then make sure you understand the stages of the helping process or treatment. And if you've been in my class before, you already know. Also, if you're taking the master's level exam, a lot of your first questions may be that you're in the assessment stage. So you really need to know how we assess, right? You need to know what a social history is, what a mental status exam is, all of the parts of the biopsychosocial. Some of those things may be innate in you, but just review them. Make sure you know those verbs, not verbs, vocabulary. Make sure you know the vocabulary so that when you see something, it'll say to you assessment. Like when you see anything about a history, it's just say assessment in your mind. Okay, this is an assessment, or I've just assessed, so make sure you're paying attention to those things. You want to rule out medical first and stay in your lane. We're definitely going to see stay in your lane tonight. And then I just put the generalist practice model. What I'll do is I'll email these to you afterwards, since I didn't get a chance to review them in depth. Common errors, I want to go over this. You have to separate the test world from the real world. We just kind of talked about that. If you do not do that, you will not get the answers right. Because my experience as a social worker is going to be totally different than yours. Social work is not really standardized, right? And this exam is trying to standardize something. So what you have to think about is, what are the core beliefs, the core values? What is kind of standard for our practice? And so it's really about knowing processes, right? How do we refer? What are the steps? Okay, the exam is linear. Okay, if you're abstract thinker, if you are, which we should be, if you're thinking about the entire picture, you cannot do that on the exam, right? They don't want you to be holistic unless they're asking you a question about holistic approach. That's the only time you'll be holistic. When you're looking at this client, I don't want you to really look at all angles. Okay, I only want you to focus on the angle they presented. Okay, because once you start to think about, well, what about this? What about their family life? What about their community? If they don't give you information on that, thinking about those things will not help you. And so you really have to train. It's really a retraining. So when people tell me, well, I've been out of school for 15 years, I'm at a deficit, I say you're not, because the only advantage someone just coming out of school may have is that they're in study mode already. But in terms of the material, your program, typically master's programs, do not teach you to the test, right? That does a disservice, right, to do that. So most programs are not teaching to the test. They're going to give you resources to pass the exam, but they're not teaching to the test. And so you do have to retrain your brain. So give yourself some grace on that and just make sure that you are focusing on what they're asking. Do not predict the actions of others. The exam is about what are you supposed to do as a social worker. We cannot control what the client may do as a response to what we are supposed to do, right? So make sure you understand that as well, right? So I can't say, well, I would do that, but I didn't pick it because, the client is not going to accept my help. Well, no, we have to refer. If that's what our next step should be, to refer, we shouldn't cloud that by all of the other what ifs. So make sure you're not doing that. This is hard. Try not to apply just one rule to all scenarios. My rule out medical is my best example. I will have clients and customers that say, well, hey, every time I see something about a doctor, I'm just going to pick it because I have to do medical first, right? But sometimes that's not the answer. The answer may be I need to do a suicide assessment first, right? Or the answer might not have anything to do about the doctor, right? Because the scenario really doesn't have anything to do about doctors. So don't just find something and say, well, every time I see this, I'm going to select this answer. Right. It's kind of like the person that said, when in doubt, pick C, right? That does not work. So trying to do that doesn't work. But what we're going to do over the next 2 months is we're going to try to make sure you know the processes and you know the steps and you know where you are in those steps, right? So if you've already done step 1 through 3, then you're on step 4 and the answer should coincide with step 4, right? That's what we're going to be talking about. I'm not saying that the exam is just so black and white, is so clear, because it's not. But what I am saying is that let's try to help your process of elimination and your confidence in answering the questions overrule the weird and dumb questions that are on there, okay? Don't eliminate options because you don't like the wording. Well, I wouldn't have said it like that. Okay, the wording is going to be difficult. You want to think about, what does this represent, right? Does this represent assessment? Does this represent feelings? Well, that's what I should be focused on, not necessarily how they framed it or how they worded it, okay? And then we as social workers, we are social workers, right? So we want to do something. We are superheroes. We save the world. We multitask. All of that, you have to get rid of all of that. Don't multitask. It's only one thing at a time, okay? One step. I call it step 0, one thing at a time, okay? So you can't go straight to intervention. You have to make sure that you've already assessed. Even in clinical, on the clinical exam, you have to make sure that you've already done all of your clinical assessments before you jump to intervention, okay? All right, let's go. It's time. Okay, good question. While I'm pulling up the poll, what is the biggest difference between the master's and the clinical exam? So it's a couple of areas. If you compare the content outlines, you will see that the areas are similar. All the exams have similar things because they want us to know similar things, right? So they want us to know the code of ethics. Ethics is on there. They want us to know human behavior. Human behavior is on all 3. The difference really is the focus. So master's level focus, bachelor's level focus is really assessment, okay? You're gonna get those other areas as well. Community, that's on all of them. But it's really about assessment and making sure we know what to do and in what order. On the clinical exam, you still have that, but it's a little bit more heavy on the clinical terms, right? Therapeutic interventions, knowing when to use what treatment modality and why, with what disorders does it work best with, those types of things. That's what you're going to be focusing on. So that's why the clinical they're both difficult, but the clinical is ridiculous, okay? The clinical is like, whoa, what is happening? Can I survive this clinical exam? So we are going to go ahead and get started. I have dropped the voting link in the chat. So every class, we're going to vote on direct poll. And so go ahead and click the link, make sure it works. Because for the interest of time, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I normally give you about 45, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds. And then we'll come together for the answers. If you're using the chat and not the poll, so if you don't want to use the poll and you want to just put your answer in the chat, I just ask that you don't put it in there until I let you know that it's time. All right, let's go. All right, go ahead and finish up on the poll and put your answer in the chat when you are ready. And the comments on Facebook. All right. So I just put the liked method in the comments and on the chat. So the liked method is a way for me to just see how to process the question. It's something that I used for both of my exams. And it really worked for me because I'm a methodical person. I have a type A personality and I need some type of instructions, right? And so I know there are a lot of acronyms out there. This is different. This is just telling you how to process the question. It's not really telling you what the answer is. The other acronyms, the reason I don't really like most of the other acronyms is because they're trying to tell you what the answer is, but it's really no formula for that. So if you're relying on Farm Grits Road or some of the other ones, they can be misleading and you're going to be trying to figure out, well, which acronym should I apply to which question? Some of the acronyms do work for people, but I'm not a fan of all of the acronyms. I am a fan of part of one acronym and I'll let you know what that is. But yeah, I'm not a fan of all of the acronyms, honestly. Let me come up on this too. All right, cool. So we're gonna process this question together. Most people got it right. Let me see what my results were. Yeah, you all got it right. So this is a good question to just review the like method. Last sentence first, you always want to read the last sentence first because it's going to have your indicator in it. This is a first question. So you want to keep that in mind. The next thing is to identify the type of question. So after I read the last sentence first, and as we go through the rest of the questions, I want you to start reading the last sentence first, okay? Because sometimes it has information in that last sentence that's key to the scenario and what's going on. Then you're going to read the entire question, okay, and try to figure out what type of question it is, and then your key concepts. Most of the questions will be practice questions. So that's just kind of how it goes. But there are some questions that like ethics, safety, that require you to kind of know a little bit more so that you can answer it right. So then we're going to do the key concepts. We're going to go over, and you'll see in the teal color are my key concepts. There's a family. So the client is a family, okay? They're going to tell you your presenting problem, and you really should know what the onset of the presenting problem and the details of the presenting problem are. That's what your focus should always be, all levels of the exam, okay? So they're having marital challenges, but the marital challenges is right, we're thinking about, well, when is the onset of the presenting problem? Is when the husband had a series of strokes, okay? And you can see that all the rest of the highlighted information goes back to this event that is affecting the entire family. So it's asking us what we should do first. And when you think about first, I want you to think about, this is the only acronym I like. Safari, I don't know about the rest of the acronym, but I like the first part, safety, feelings, and assessment. Safety, feelings, and assessment. For our first question, I want you to write that down. It's a guide, okay? It's not, we got to go by this every time, but when you see a first question, I want you to ask yourself, is this a safety question? Should I be thinking about my client's feelings as a way to understand and engage with my clients? Or am I in the assessment stage and I need to gather information, right? If it's asking me first, sometimes it could be like that. Sometimes it's asking you first, it's a community question, right? So we might not be dealing with feelings, we might be dealing with assessment, or we might be dealing with something totally different, right? So first is not always safety, feelings, assessment, but it is a good shot. It's a good chance that there's something in that should be there. And this goes in order. So before I deal with my client's feelings, if it's a safety issue, I have to deal with that first. And I should only be doing something related to safety, right? Okay. So we have all of that. Then I want you to read the 3 or 4 options, your answer options. And I want you to eliminate in this process what it definitely is not, right? Because if you eliminate things, again, if you say A, B, no, C, no, I want you to read all of them. And then I want you to assess what it definitely is not. Like based on the question or just based on social work in general, we would never do this, or this has nothing to do with the question. I'm going to eliminate it. Eliminate it like that. I'm telling you, if you eliminate it and you just be like, oh no, yeah, maybe, if you do that, then you could possibly be eliminating the right answer. So eliminate and then look at the 2 options you have. You can reread the scenario at this point, but I really don't want you to reread the scenario like 3 times in a row before you even look at the questions, right? But it does depend on how you process. But sometimes if you just read it like 4 or 5 times, that's taken away from, the rest of your time. So the answer is A, as you see. I eliminated B first. Create a situation which places the husband in an independent role because it has to do with the husband. Arrange an individual treatment sessions for the husband because it has to do with the husband. And then A is the obvious answer here, which most people got that right. If you have any questions as we're going through, just let me know. I'm going to put the poll in the chat box again. And again, in order to access the poll, you do have to click the link and then it'll take you to the poll. All right, keep processing, but go ahead and put your answers in. Tell me in the chat and on the comments, what type of question is this? Okay, recall. Yes. What? Okay. Yep. Recall Erickson. Perfect. Yeah. So this is a human behavior question. Again, like I said, the last question was just a direct practice question. So this is a human behavior question. You need to know Erik Erikson. With Erik Erikson and all the developmental theories that we're going to go over on September 14th, you need to know the age and the stage. We have an age, so the child is 9. So now, if we've studied, then we know what stage a 9-year-old is in. What they also will do with Erikson sometimes is to say, sometimes the age is not enough. Sometimes you have to kind of really read, because sometimes they want to know what's the next stage, or in the future, this stage may be affected. So just make sure, do they want me to assess the stage that the child is in right now, or do they want me to assess a future stage? Because sometimes they will mix it up like that. All right, let's reveal the answer. The answer is A. Industry versus inferiority. That's the answer. I eliminated initiative versus guilt, and autonomy versus shame and doubt was my distractor. But all of this is just based on the age. All 3 of these are similar in what's going on during the stage. So honestly, it really just had to do with the fact that the child was 9. And that's industry versus inferiority, because that is a school-age child. And they are looking at what they're doing with their peers. That's kind of what's happening. Autonomy versus shame and doubt is for our younger kids. That's kind of like my around my son's age, right? Okay. Let's go to 3. Okay, the time went by fast. It's only 30 seconds. Go ahead and drop your answers, or if you're still reading, continue to process the question. Tell me what stuck out to you. Why did you know that you needed to do something immediately? What stuck out to you? Yeah, definitely safety. CPS questions, Child Protective Service questions, are one of the questions I will say that people struggle with the most. Either you're in it too deep because you are in CPS, or you're not as familiar, right? And you think you need to report everything. This is an example of when we need to report. We have the who, what, when, and where. Right? We have who the perpetrator is, and we have what the actions were and the impact on the child. We have a direct report, actually. The child told us what happened. Yes. There are times where we don't have all the information and the answer is not to report it. So we'll be doing a deeper dive on that in our ethics and safety on September 28th. If you are only interested in just a couple of them, that ethics class and the macro class are key. Human behavior is key too, because a lot of people struggle. But if you have a good foundation of ethics and you have a good foundation of that macro stuff, it's really going to propel you in that. So this is definitely an ethics question. And we are mandated reporters. We're going to report this. All right, let's do 4. If you have any questions, don't understand what's going on, I don't get it, just let me know. All right, go ahead and drop your answers in the chat, in the comments, on the poll. I also wanted to respond to a question I had while you're still answering. What is the best system to memorize the stages? So that is going to depend on your learning style. There is information that you're going to have to memorize. It is a bulk of information, honestly, but it's not everything. You don't have to memorize the whole APGAR book, but you do have to know some of the things. And this is definitely one of them, those stages that we just went over. So if you're visual, you're going to have to continue to see it. If you're auditory, you probably just need to maybe listen to it. If you're more hands-on, you probably just need more practice questions with it and some scenarios to really understand the different stages. There are some acronyms out there, videos. There's some animation videos that may be helpful. So it's really about what your learning style is. That's key to any studying. Okay, I put in the chat and on Facebook, HRC, Human Rights Campaign, have a great glossary of terms. There is a lot of information of diversity. The LGBTQ plus population is on the exam in abundance. Okay, that's the feedback I keep getting. It's been like this for a little while, but sometimes people are caught off guard because they're using terms that they may not see on a regular basis. Okay, so make sure you understand that. The answer is C, gender fluid. And that's because it describes a person that has a single fixed gender, identifies with a single fixed gender, or an unfixed gender identity. Both of those things are what gender fluid is. So you kind of had to know what that meant. But make sure you know all of these. And the glossary I sent is really good. Do you have to memorize all the terms? No, but you should definitely know what the differences are. The difference between sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression. You need to know those terms, pronouns, all of those things you need to know. Not only do you need to know the terms, but you really need to know the best practices, okay? I do have a video on my YouTube where I had a diversity class and we dug a little bit deeper into those different terms. So make sure you watch that. And then just keep familiarizing yourself with it. That one was a recall as well. That was human behavior. Diversity is human behavior, typically. Unless we are advocating, then it might be a little ethics in there. But diversity is ethics too. So diversity is ethics, but it's definitely human behavior. So let's go to 5. All right, alarm and sound. Go ahead and put your answers in. When I normally do my live classes, you have 45 seconds, so you do have a little more time. Tonight, I just wanted to make sure we get through all 10 questions and just give you a preview of what some of the questions will look like. Process the feelings. I like that. I like it. I like it. Let's see. Let's see if you're right. Let's go best. Oh, best. Oh, gosh. Okay, so best and most are my least favorite indicators. When it talks about what the best response should be, it really may depend on a process. It may depend on what's going on in the scenario. And it really is looking at what's the best. Like, you can do all of these things possibly, but with this specific information, what is the best? So you have to match it up. So the answer should always match what's in the scenario, but for best, it really has to match up and or just kind of be one of our kind of core values or core processes for what we normally do. Different than first, because first is an order. Best just means where we are right now, what is best, okay? It doesn't have to be what you do first, but it can be what you do first. So that's why it's confusing. That's why I don't like best. It's confusing, and most. So we're a social worker at a mental health clinic. Our client is diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. That's part of our presenting problem, right? We have a therapeutic relationship, but we see that we have extreme romantic attraction towards the client. Uh-oh, what kind of question is this? If we're having extreme romantic attraction towards the client, what is that called? Come on, Facebook, I haven't heard from you. It is ethics, but what's the term called when you have romantic attraction towards your client? Dual relationship. All right, countertransference. Yes, yes, yes. So transference is the client to us. So the client may have attractive feelings towards us or something like that. But when we are having feelings, that's countertransference, right? Perfect, 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 perfect. So we're having romantic feelings. When we have countertransference feelings, what should we do? First, next, everything, right? We should, at all costs, we should do this, okay? What should we do? We need to, let me make sure, let me see what the poll was looking like. Let me see, did you get it right? Okay, yes, you did. Great. You need to immediately see your agency supervisor. Yes, run to this. We know, you see the board, your board, how they terminate social workers for sleeping with their clients. It's dangerous, okay? Because we're human and the clients be looking good sometimes, okay? But you can't, you gotta nip it in the bud. So I need to go supervision so I get my rhyme right. I may need to go therapy. I may need to transfer the client. I don't know, but I gotta deal with it. Let's look at what I eliminated first. Plan to discuss the romantic attraction at the next session. No, that is not good. Let me tell you why that's not good. Anytime we are discussing our feelings in a session, unless we are using a technique called use of self, where we are using our therapeutic relationship, like letting them know that maybe we are hurt by what they did or something like that, then yes, a hard no, Alfonso, yes. No, we're not doing that. Because the therapy session is not about us. So we should not, all of our countertransference should not leak into the session. When it's leaking into the session, we definitely know we have a major issue. So we're not doing B, as in boy. Ask other coworkers if they have availability to transfer the client. Possibly, but we don't know yet, right? Because we haven't gotten to that point. And typically a transfer has to go through our supervisor anyways, so we're gonna take that out. Develop a strategy to terminate since therapeutic process has been achieved. Okay, because it does say you had you developed a therapeutic relationship over the past 3 months. So like, oh, I'll just terminate them. I'll hurry up and terminate them. But that's not good either, because then you could be doing that prematurely just based upon your feelings. And that would also be detrimental to the client. Yes, especially, oh yes, very good, Angel, especially with the type of diagnosis they have, also with the grandiosity. Yes, you might like that narcissism. You like got a little ego, you might like it. So we're going to immediately set up an appointment with the agency supervisor. Okay. Now, what if you said, well, I didn't like the fact that it said immediately, like, am I going to end the session and then immediately go to my, like, I didn't like that word immediately. And you might not like that word, but the general essence is I need to talk to my supervisor about this. And as we go through different things, and I'll post tomorrow, when do we need a supervisor? I'm not saying there's going to be, that's all the situations, but countertransference and transference feelings are going to be when you need to talk to your supervisor about that. Now, supervision is not for therapy. So if it's some deeper work you got to do, then you might have to, you might need to do some more digging, but your first and best in this, in that question is going to be to do that. All right, let's do 6. All right, let's see how we did. All right. We had 75% on the poll. A&D was an immediate no. Okay. Let's see, what kind of question is this? What should social worker do first? Yeah, what kind of question is this? Let me know. Ethics, absolutely. Yes, and how do we know? Because they are requesting a copy of the team's records. Records is definitely, yes. Confidentiality, ethics, absolutely. So we said this one was tough because we should first explore why the parents want to have a copy. All right, Kevin. Yeah. but we don't have that as a option. So I don't want you to get distracted with it, okay? Remember, this is not, it's not practical. So we said A and D is absolutely out. Okay, give the parent access to the record immediately. That's typically out because first, first, since it's saying first, we probably need some more information or need to know a little bit more or something. So we're not going to just give records. Typically, when it comes to records, we don't typically just let it fly. We probably have to do a little digging, see what's going on. Discuss with the client how they're coming out to their parents is time sensitive. How pushy is that? Come on, hurry up. I need you to come out so I can give them the records. No, we're not doing that. So yes, both of those are out. So now we have B and C as our last kind of questions. B says, allow the parents to view only parts of the record to exclude the client's sexual orientation status. And C says, follow appropriate jurisdictional regulations. So this was the kind of a tough one. This is one that I created. So sometimes my questions that I create could be, a hit or miss. But what I wanted you to know is that we should follow whatever jurisdiction regulations say we should do. And the reason why I even created this question was based upon the news that we had. Forgive me, I forget the state, but the state that prohibited teachers from letting parents know anything about sexual orientation. So let's say a student discloses, Florida, thank you. You cannot tell that parent. And it's a lot of debate about it, but that made me think, wow, as a social worker, how does that impact my ability to give records, right? Isn't option B where we assert privilege? Yeah, so B could probably be a good answer, but first let's check the rules first. Like C is not always the answer, but it's like I want you to highly consider it when it comes to ethics, because remember the test is national, and so what's in Maryland and what's in Florida is two totally different things. So B might be okay in one state and then B might not be okay. Maybe A is what I'm supposed to do, is do A, so it just really depends on what jurisdiction, what's the regulation. So when you see jurisdictional regulations, what that means is based on my location, right? Based on where I practice. That's what I'm going to do, whatever my state, my county, my city, my, wherever I'm practicing, I'm going to do that. Okay. So that's what C means. And it's just a good first option. And then some of the other things may happen. Or we would never do like D, right? We're never gonna do that. The other thing I want to say about first is that the other answers are correct, right? Some of these other answers could be correct, but you have to base it on an order. So you have to put it in order. So go ahead and eliminate what you want to eliminate and then put it in order. Ask yourself, which one comes first, B or C? You have to ask yourself that. So once you eliminate it down to two, if it's a first question, you have to ask yourself, whichever one you actually select, ask yourself, does that really come before the other one that you selected? Okay. All right, let's do 7. We're almost done. We have 10, so we have 4 more. 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 4 more. Ask a social worker to do math. And I'm pretty good at math, but I gotta. All right, go ahead and put your answers in. And let me know, what kind of question is this? Assessment. Okay. It is assessment. Okay. Okay, it does say that we're in the assessment phase. So that we are in the assessment interventions. Okay, we are in the assessment phase. Let's dig a little deeper. What should a social worker do first? We have a client who feels worthless. That's our presenting problem. Okay, client who feels worthlessness. Okay, you think of depression, but it might not be depression. Let's see what's like really happening. We have a client that just retired, feels useless, worried about bills, able to get her needed medication. That was a distractor. That don't even have nothing to do with anything. Feels isolated, and friends are not able to socialize. So with retirement comes a loss. And we can see the loss coming out, right? So she now feels useless because she retired. And her friends aren't able to socialize. So not only does she not have like the job kind of environment, but her friends are not even there to really give her that either. So she's feeling some grief and loss. So the answer is actually C. Our social work brain may have said, well, we need to help her pay her bills and get her medications, right? That's our social work brain. But before we social work her, right? Before we work her, we need to address her feelings and acknowledge her feelings. That the feelings that she has, it's not, I mean, we're not sure if she has depression yet. It's not really about depression, but we see that the worthlessness, the uselessness, the isolated, all of those are related to her big change. And we also know that grief and loss is not just death, right? This is actually a loss, and we want to process those feelings with our clients. So before we start prioritizing her needs and helping her with interventions and things like that, we want to acknowledge her feelings, because that the feelings is all over the place. Feelings of worthlessness, useless, even though I didn't highlight it, sorry. Useless, feeling isolated, like it's all about feelings. When we think about what we should do first, we definitely should do feelings first. Yeah, at first I thought B, because B is social work. A is social work. So remember, first does not mean that we're not going to do those things. It just means that before we prioritize her needs, and you can do all of this in the same session. That's kind of what, it's hard for the exam because you're thinking that these things are gonna, it's like so much time passing by. I need to help her. You can still help her and normalize the client's feelings. Like, but normalizing a client's feelings is not going to take, a whole session. But they just want to know that when a client is feeling this, we should normalize it for this client, her, because she just had a loss of, retirement was her loss. Any questions on this one? Because this one was a little, we had a couple tricky ones. So yeah, this one was a little tricky. Don't be afraid now. If you're like, hey, I get it, but why? Like, just let me know and we can go over it. All right, 8, I'm gonna put 30 seconds on the clock. Yep, Angel, that's perfect. Safety, just put feelings first. Safety, feelings, assessment, yep. All right, go ahead and put your answers in. All right, let's see what we got. Tell me what stage of practice or a stage of the treatment process are we in? Initial, okay. Beginning, okay. Let me check the Facebook. Facebook, what stage are we in? Engagement. Okay. I like this. I like this. So yes, I agree that we are in the beginning. So let's try to figure out what beginning we're in. C and D is out. Refer for a medication evaluation. D, suggest that the client consider joining a group. Joining a group and referring for a medical. Well, the medication evaluation is kind of an assessment, but it's still, we're not there yet because that would be a further assessment. So that would mean we did some assessing already. And suggest the client consider joining a group. That's going to be an intervention for sure. So we're going to get rid of both of those. I know we all said that A was assessment. It says assessment in the question. Explore the client's disconnection from the gay community. Is that a feeling? Or like, what are we thinking about that? Or is that assessment? Yeah, it's B is assessment to me. When you see explore, I want you to think assessment, typically. Assessing feelings. Yeah, so right now we have, we also kind of have to think about where we are, right? So we have our client, long history of depression. So remember, there wasn't a whole lot of feelings that were, so he said he's reporting being distant from the gay community, but he didn't really say anything about feelings, if that makes sense. Like, it didn't say I'm having all of these feelings, right? It really is about what is contributing to the depression. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to figure out what is contributing to the depression, right? And that's assessment. Okay, we're trying to figure out what is contributing to the depression. So B, if we do B first, we would be saying and assuming that the disconnection from the gay community is why our client is depressed. That locks us in a little too tight, right? It may be other factors we need to consider before just honing in on that one thing, right? Because he also talked about emotional relationship. Most of my areas of my life are fine, but I have never had emotional relationships. So maybe we need to do a little bit of history on the relationship history to see what's going on with that. So that's why B is not the answer. B is really tempting because it says explore. And as social workers, as we have been studying, we tend to gravitate towards explore because it's like super social worky. But honestly, exploring is assessing. I do agree that you can also assess for feelings, like you can, but typically we're trying to validate a feeling. And even though he's reporting being distant, that really wasn't what he was saying, if that makes sense. Like B to me is an interpretation that we've made. This one threw me way off. Yeah. So B is more of, I have concluded something, and so I want to explore it because I'm thinking that the disconnection is why, he's having issues. So let me explore it, right? So before we explore a particular thing, let's just get an overall assessment. So A is really like a biopsychosocial, like let me really dig into what's going on in all factors, all areas of his life, so that I can, autopilot with explore, Yes, I gotta keep you on your toes. This particular question always gets you. It's always 50-50 between A and B. So I like to, even if you've seen it before, it still catch you off guard sometimes. So here's the lesson. When in doubt, when you have two assessment answers, go with the assessment that gathers more information. Are we eliminating safety and feelings and going to assessment? Right. So you really have to determine like where you are in the process, right? So this is not a safety question, so we don't have to worry about safety. It's not a safety question, right? It wasn't a feelings question. Even though you felt like B was feelings, B is really assessment. Okay. So when you know you're supposed to be assessing and you have two answers that assess, I want you to select the answer that gathers the most information, right? A is gathering a whole lot of information. B is only gathering a little. B is also not acknowledging feelings. B is an interpretation that we have made based upon the information we've gathered so far. We're like, that's it. I need to explore that. Let's explore that more. And you're getting confused also because in sessions, that's what you're saying, right? As soon as they say something, you're like, oh yes, let's explore that more, right? But in the exam, it just wants you to know, hey, we've hit a lot of areas, right? We've talked about relationships, we've talked about your connection to the gay community. You talked a little bit about how you're not political, and kind of how you identify and how that identity kind of plays into your behavior. So you've gotten some information, and it hasn't been one-sided. So you want to kind of gather the rest of the sides, if that makes sense. And there are times when you're going to assess specific things. So I don't want you to think that it's always going to be, well, I'm just going to pick the one that says biopsychosocial or whatever. There are times where you're going to assess specific things, but typically that's because the rest of the answers are not assessing, right? So I don't have a rapport yet. Exploring is assessment. Yes, I don't have a rapport yet. Yeah, so I get it. You want the question to tell you everything. It's not going to always tell you everything, right? So if there were answers that had something to do with building rapport that were in the answers, then I would go with you. But because none of the answers have to do with building a rapport, we can't get stuck in, well, I didn't build a rapport yet, right? Because we don't have that information. But if we had information about rapport or the answers had something to do with small talk, building a relationship, it says something in the answers about building a therapeutic relationship with the client. All right, we know for sure. Okay, we're going to do that. But the exam is not going to say you've already built the rapport, you had the rapport for this amount of time. Like it's not always going to say all that information. Sometimes the question is going to be one sentence. So you're really going to be like, well, what do I do with this one sentence? Like, what do they want me to? So you really have to like kind of strip it down, break it down. is a tricky one, but we got to have some tricky ones. Yep, you just got to slow down. And that's honestly what I want you to do. I want you to slow all the way down. And that's why I like the liked method, because it helps me like not go so fast. Fast is good. Now, if you can process Angela been answering these questions like 30, before the 30 seconds. I'm like, all right, Angela, what? But so I'm not saying you can't process fast, but I just want you to really think about what it's asking and what's in the question and what the answers are saying. Because remember, the answers determine everything, right? If we had another answer choice, it might have been that one and not, so. No. Don't think of it like that. It's a learning process. It really is. Okay, let's do 9. All right, Morgan. I like it. Group question equals group answer. This is a next question. With next questions, they are similar to first. Some things you want to consider. What has already happened, right? Something has already happened and it's asking you what you should do next. Next is also going to give you an immediate response to what just happened. Sometimes you have already done something. So you want to make a note. If you've already, as a social worker, made some actions, interventions, whatever, taking some steps, you want to note that. And sometimes next means you're still in session. This one, kind of, but not really. So you are a social worker leading a group. As a social worker, we are always facilitating a group. So I've never seen a question where we're like just a participant in a group. We're always facilitating, even if it's a staff meeting, we're always facilitating this staff meeting. Interdisciplinary meeting, we're always facilitating. So we have some group members that are feeling frustrated and uncomfortable, right? And let me just say this. Your response should be based upon best practice or, like I said, core values, core processes when it comes to this. What you're really going to do is probably some of these other things, right? And it does feel a little bit like it takes the humanity and the relational part out of the exam, right? Because if someone is talking to me, I'm going to respond to them, right? I'm going to respond with empathy. I'm going to maybe reflect back what they said to me. Like, I'm going to put some fluff to it. But on the exam, it just wants you to know that when you are with a group, you want to discuss the issue with the group, right? So it's not saying that you don't have to listen to what they're saying. You may empathize, you may nod, you may do all those things, but you just don't want to, for the exam's sake, go deep into, hey, you need to remember how you first felt when you came to the group, all that stuff. Even though we probably going to say that, we probably are. But in terms of the exam, they want us to know that we should discuss this at the next group, because the discussion is happening outside the group, right? The group has ended after the session. So, everybody has trickled on, and you have some stragglers and they're complaining about what just happened. And so your response should always be, let's talk about it at the next session, because everybody's feelings should be heard, and everything should be shared for the most part in the group, okay? So Morgan, perfect. Group question, group answer. So I chose the right answer, but if this is affecting multiple members, don't we need to address it? Sure, but we don't know yet. So if we had more information, Kevin, so let's say they gave us a little more information, right? And every session is about this couple. So they have essentially took over all sessions, right? Even after we've addressed it and said something about it, they still are making the session all about them. They don't let anybody else talk. And then we might have to make some decisions as the facilitator about their continuance with the group. But how we would address it is talking about it in the group and then coming up with a solution together about, how to address maybe not just that couple, but just the instance in general, how to address that. And probably address them if it's a recurring problem. I was just confused about this one, Brianna. Okay, so let me go through again. What should the social worker do next? I thought A would be first. So what would be first? So A is the answer. And remember, next is like first. So if you were thinking what should be first, that was correct. When you see next, sometimes you could also look at it as first, because it's like first, next. After this has happened, what is your first next response? It's your first response after what just happened. Next just suggests that things have already occurred, right? So A is the correct answer. Okay, let's do 10. Hopefully that cleared it up for everyone. Let me see. I don't think I had any questions on the Facebook. Okay, let's go to 10. This is our last question. Oh, the poll. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna give you extra 30 seconds. I forgot to change the poll. My bad. Okay, poll is up. Give you another 30 seconds. All right, Facebook is looking good. Chat is looking good. Look at y'all community organizers. Yes, come on in the community. What should I do first? But guess what? We needed to look at also in determining how funding is allocated. Remember, I said some of your questions are going to have a lot of information in that last sentence. That's why I want you to read it first, okay? In determining how funding is allocated, what should a social worker do first? Okay, so if we were to put this in order from last to first, whenever you put it in order, go from last to first. Give me what goes last out of A through D. What's last? Okay, Shayla, I see you with the terms. Come on now. Social planning. I know that's right. Okay, we said what comes last? C. V. Actually, yep, I would go with C. Present the proposed new budget, right? That's our kind of like end game, right? We want to present the budget to the mayor because that's what we've been asked to do. And then we may draft it. So B and D could kind of come either way, right? We either could draft it and then send it to a financial consultant, or we might do the financial consulting first and then draft it. So those two could kind of be either way. I would say draft it and then so present the budget, draft it, obtain the financial consultation, because financial consultation is like assessment a little bit. And A is most important. When we're dealing with community, we have to get input from our community members, right? That's always going to be key. So it'll say it different ways, but this is saying, hey, we need to get input from those of which the services actually impact, right? So the answer was A. How did we do? I don't know if you were keeping track. I meant to tell you to keep track. But based upon how you feeling, all right, Kevin. 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Come on. Not too bad. I got 3 wrong. Okay, that's not bad. Yeah, and this was just a little snapshot. Once we go through each of the classes, we're going to focus in on each of the topics, and then you'll really understand, I need to study human behavior a little more. Yes, Morgan. Yep, that was a macro question. Community organizing, funding, all of that stuff. Evaluation, all of that macro. That last question got me. I was thinking the team was already together. Oh, yes. I didn't keep count. That's okay. This was great. Thank you so much. You're absolutely welcome. I'm just gonna throw up the picture real quick of my services. And I'm gonna put the link in the chat as well. I need you at the next class so we can master these questions together. That's what we're gonna do. All right, Michelle said you missed 1. 2 wrong. Great, doing great. Great. So I'm not sure where everyone is with their journey of studying. I did see some people say they have exams coming up. So just make sure that you are giving yourself affirmations. Make sure that you are really reviewing the code of ethics right now and really reviewing macro and the LGBTQ plus. Please look at that stuff because that's really on it, and that's what throws people off a lot. Human behavior also throws people off as well. So just keep those things in mind. Make sure that you have confidence, okay? That's the main thing. Do you offer practice exams? So in my replay bundle, my video course, I do have a 50-question quiz. I do not have a 150-question quiz, but I need to have one. So I'm still working on it. Yes, basically for the exam, we should think about things happening in a perfect world. Absolutely perfect environment. No lack of resources. You can get the person on the first ring. Those type of stuff. That's what you think about. Let me share my schedule. What is your pass rate? Good question. So with my business, I have not done a research. I really would need to do like a survey and a research study to keep up. Typically, people tell me when they pass. Typically, people do not tell me when they do not pass. And it's hard because there's no database for me to kind of pull information from when people do not pass. So it's a little harder. When I worked with universities, my pass rate is right around 75 to 80. But that's working with smaller groups of people. So, like 100, like it's not like a lot. And that rate is based upon who takes the exam. Because what happens at a HBCU is that we get in our own head and then we don't even take it. That's what happens. So out of the few that take it, out of the like 40, 50 people that actually take it, that's what has been my pass rate. But I don't have a pass rate for everybody, like I said, because it's hard to keep track of the people that I do service. But I would love to do a research study and really see how the material is working. I do have testimonials on, is that the right word? Yeah, testimonials on my Instagram page. It's a lot of testimonials on there. My material is designed for master's level because that is where I have the most experience, but I have had people that use the material for clinical as well. I've actually had some recent people use it for both. They used it for master's and clinical and passed for both. So that was encouraging for me. Yes, come on, Marilyn. Come on. Yes. Creating a study plan. Absolutely. I'm taking the clinical. Yes. Yeah. So if you're taking the clinical, the two classes that don't go over everything you need to know, which none of the classes go over everything you need to know, just to let you know. But for the clinical, your direct practice, that class is more for the master's level, and the diagnosis and medication is more for the master's level as well. With the clinical, you're going to have to really dig into clinical interventions. And with diagnosis and medication, you need to dig more into differential diagnosis, which I do not go over. But all of the other areas are the same. Theory is going to be on there. Ethics going to be on there. Macro is definitely going to be on there. So those classes are still applicable, and the information in direct and diagnosis are still applicable. It's just when you're in your independent study, you're going to really need to make sure you have that clinical study exam guide. For anybody that takes my classes, I do not have my own book. So you want to invest in some type of study guide, right? I call it like the encyclopedia. So my handouts will give you a breakdown of the study guides. All of the information is the same, okay? Community organizing is the same. Theories do not change really, right? So the material is the same in all of your books. If you take all your books together, they're going to have the same exact material. Some of the guides are just a little more detailed than others. So they might have more, definitions in there, but the material is all the same. It's really no proprietary information over Freud. That's it's common knowledge. So what I'm going to do is just give it to you in chunks that you can understand. Okay. I need help developing a plan. Human behavior is really overwhelming. Yes. So the great thing with this buy one, get one free deal is when you get this, you'll also get the video course, and that video course will have, I have a study plan specifically for human behavior. So even if you just come to the human behavior class, you will get that study plan where I break down, and I have some worksheets in there as well. What happens if you can't attend every session due to work obligations? So I would just assess that and see if it's going to be every night you're missing. Yeah, if it's going to be every night you're missing, then I would probably just wait for the video course to go on sale, and it would be a little cheaper. The video course will probably go on sale for my birthday. But you still get the material and the recording. But honestly, the reason that I do the live group classes is that's the kind of the draw, is to be there, be present, and be able to engage like live, have questions. It helps with motivation as well. What book do you recommend? Hey, Samantha, I passed using your material and now studying for my clinical. Yes, come back to me. I can help you. What book do you recommend? I like Don Apgar. And I also like Leap. Those are the two that I would say that I do like. If you need a little more structure, like I can only give you as much structure as I can, like every week is the group, but you might need more structure, even further structure about what to study, when to study it. A Therapist Development Center has been something that has been really highly recommended. And some of my clients will do TDC and me because TDC is the study part, like it helps you with studying, has questions and stuff in there, and then I'll help you with how to break down the question. So they don't really help you with how to. Most of the books, most of the programs don't help you with how to. They just give you the information. So I'm here to help you organize it, analyze it, and give it to you in a way that's not overwhelming. Where is the simplified NASW ethics? We do simplify it in my class. And there are some YouTube videos on the code of ethics as well that break it down as well. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Bree. But thank you all for tuning in. I'll probably have some more free ones as we go along. I like doing the free ones. I like seeing you all. I also have a TED Talks. He also does free classes every Sunday, and he also does free individual consultations as well as like I think you have to schedule that with him. So he does that every Sunday. It's free. So go ahead and check him out, and I'll make sure to post that to everybody so that they can get that information on whenever he's upcoming. He is called, wait a minute, let me find it. Let me find his Instagram. Hold on for just a second. I'll find it for you. I don't have his Instagram memorized. But I really admire him for providing those types of services because let me tell you, the cash flow be slow sometimes. So you need a little free, okay? And my goal is just to give you some resources. So I am a proponent of others. I love TED Talks. Okay, that was right. Okay, I knew I went crazy. I was like, I know it's called TED Talks, but let me try to find his like Facebook and stuff. I know I have his Instagram. Let's see. I should have it in my notes somewhere. That's what I really should be doing. But shout out to him. Yes, here it is. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the comments. And I'm gonna put it in the chat on Zoom as well. I've also recorded this. So you will see the video archived on my Facebook, and then I'm also going to be posting it to YouTube. Yes, TED Talks. And he does different subjects. I don't think he posted for this upcoming Sunday. It's a holiday, so he might not be doing it this Sunday, but just follow him and make sure that you are keeping up with his information. Pocket Prep is good. Yep. AppGar. Yep. All those are good. Great. So I look forward to seeing you soon. Pass the word around. Let them know the classes are back. And I put the website in the chat, and it's also posted. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and also Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to my email list so that you get the emails. Because I typically will release them on the email list and Instagram as well. So it was good seeing you all. I'm gonna stop the live share. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.